Let's give them another hand as they come up on stage. So good evening again, everyone. Just to give you a heads up, our conversation tonight is really going to be about the filmmakers and the process, because like I said in the in-house announcements, our goal is for our members to create their own work, so we want to hear from them. So first, we have to know who they are, so I'll have you guys introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Julian Acosta. I directed What Bitch?
Hey, I'm Taryn O'Neill. I wrote, directed, and acted in Live.
Hi, I'm Christina Jun. I directed Search History.
I'm Andrew Carlberg. I produced Skin.
I'm Christopher Black. I wrote and directed Jim.
So as we know, it takes a tribe, a village, an army, whatever you want to call it, to make a film happen. So we have people in the audience who you brought and came. And before we get started with that, we laughed on your mom's last line in the film. So I want you to share what she said. So, and then introduce who's there.
So it was my aunt, and I think she said, I don't fight anymore like that, but I did that day because of Jay, which is, me, so.
So who is here from the film you like to
so my cast is here. Maybe they can stand up or something. You could stand. You could see how great they are. And then my producer Ellie is here, and Connor, the first AD, and they could stand. There's some place in the back, hidden in the dark.
I'm not sure. Tyler, are you here? He thought he might be able to come. My crew is so awesome and working that they couldn't make it for the 7 o'clock deadline, so I have a bunch of awesome supporters here.
A lot of my cast and a lot of my crew are here. Do you mind holding up your hands so I don't miss you guys? So, all the aunties, our first AD, our associate producer, the 2 podcast ladies, our writer, costume designer. We're all here.
I have 2 of our actors, Shelly Francisco and Jared Day.
AJ, are you here? AJ? Okay, no AJ. My mom's here. Mom, shout out to Mom. My cinematographer, Sean, is here. And we're all here.
Hey, Mom. Okay, so we've watched a lot of short films to get to this process, and we've noticed a theme, and it always starts obviously with story, because story is the in, story then becomes the script, and it goes from there. So I'd love to hear from you. Where did the story come from? What was the inspiration? What made it the thing that you wanted then to write and spend all your time making? So.
Well, it's an infamous family story, as you can tell. I don't know if you guys noticed, but we actually shot at the place that it really happened, which was really interesting and wild because, I hadn't been there in years. We shot in Bakersfield, California, where I grew up. But my aunt, I love her to death, and she's a big personality, as you can tell, and I always wondered, what it was that made her who she is. I don't know. I felt like this story was just like a little glimpse into that. So this is where the story came from.
I was up in Vancouver auditioning, and I basically went to a coffee shop, and I'd been writing sort of in the sci-fi genre for a while on the side, and I challenged myself. I was in this sort of gas town rundown coffee shop, and I'm like, write something that potentially somebody could make on the cheap in one location. And I saw a picture window, and it was kind of cracked, and it looked like a loft, and I basically went from that image and I wrote it. And then a couple weeks later, I looked at it, and there was acting themes, obviously, in it, and I didn't write it for myself. And I circled back around, and I'm like, this is actually kind of an interesting story. And I developed it a little bit further and took it to a company that was going to, a friend was at, and they were actually going to finance it. And when that fell through, I financed it myself, but it just seemed like a good... But it seemed like a really good, I hate using the word calling card, but when you can create something that's really contained, it's helpful.
Where did we come up with this story? Elisa O, my writer, and I are both Korean American, and of course ladies. And we were friends from our MFA program. And so we got together and we're like, what do we want to do? We just graduated. And we really wanted to tell a story that was really unapologetically like Korean American and female driven and like in our voice. And so something thematically I think we really wanted to focus on was the idea of Asian American history and how do we identify with history that's kind of not ours, but it's adopted, I guess. So yeah, I guess that's what we wanted to focus on.
And I'm in the unique position that I'm producer, not the writer director, but Guy had read a story of an individual who was kind of indoctrinating the idea of racial hate into his son against the backdrop of like people crossing the border and what to do if you see somebody and the kid had actually shot his father in response in some sort of mix-up, and then Guy shared that story and narrative with, I want to say it was a college colleague of his, Sharon Maimon, and Sharon kind of started to come up with the idea of the twist and the tattooing and stuff like that, and that they together kind of came up with this wholly original idea.
Jim started as a joke I told somebody about being black and being the only black kid in school. Whenever it was like Black History Month, all the kids would look at you as though, like, can we talk about MLK? Is it cool? So I made a joke. And then I realized as a first short film, it would be something great to explore, something a little bigger, something that people, I think, would connect with and explore other themes as well. And so I originally wrote like a wacky slapstick kind of comedy, but I realized that the message would have fallen short. So I kind of grounded it in reality and made it a little weird and a little satirical, because I like satire. I like jokes, and we just made it happen.
Whether it be from the writer or maybe the reader or experiencer of the script, what is it, the thing that goes, okay, this should be a short film versus a bigger thing? Because a lot of times when we're watching the films, reviewing them, they're sometimes trying to cram a feature into a short film or not finding the thing that is supposed to be the thing that is a short film. So kind of talk about your process in the writing process or in the reading process of like, okay, this is why it needs to be a short film, or this is the direction or reason why you're going. And we can start with anybody that wants to jump in.
Well, I've made a whole lot of shorts in my time, and I kind of like when I talk about them, I think that there's two types of shorts. I think that they're exactly what you said. There's the shorts that are like small movies that are like multiple locations, and that's what I put Skin in that category. And then there are the shorts where it's a one location short, and I've had success with both types. I think as long as you can contain like the beginning, middle, and end of a story, that is really what it comes down to when making it into a short film. Just my I think Skin is a little bit of an anomaly to a lot of what I would recommend doing in a short. It worked out really well for us, but like for the most part, I would say like when you're making a short, like 10 minutes is a sweeter spot to be in for programming purposes, and I've had a lot more success with the single location shorts than I have with the multiple location shorts in my time. So that's kind of my feeling on that.
This is my first short, and it's my first directing job that I gave myself.
Hey.
Thank you. But I do have a background in web series. I produced a few sci-fi web series in like 2008 and 2009. So having sort of those arcs that can be completed, in 10 minutes of like really how to tell a full story in a short amount of time, I think is a really good exercise, as a writer and as an actor too, because it's like, how do you get a full sense of a character in 10 minutes? So I think it was a great exercise just for me writing it to be like, can I actually create compelling characters with stories that after 12 minutes, you really feel like you got them and you see their inner conflict? So I think as actors, it's a great exercise too.
I think also money. Having money to make something, the shorter something is, sometimes the cheaper it can be. But I think what's important is to come up with moments that you really want to, show, like you said, kind of follow like maybe 3-act structure in 5 to 10 minutes. You just gotta sweet spot. Yeah.
For me, it started with something really personal, I guess. This is my first short too, but I'm a director. I direct commercials, and I started in music videos, and I've done that sort of path. But I've directed so many, like 500 commercials or something, and I needed this, and I felt a little bit like I was forgetting who I was, so I had to go back to the place where I grew up, and and be, actually the second shot of the film is the house that I grew up in, and I know. It's so cute. I know. I don't want to get a frog voice here, but so it was something personal. But then, as I was developing it, I remembered, I went to this lab that Spike Jonze did, and he talked about getting in as late as you can to a short film and leaving as early as you can. And I really took that to heart. But for me, it was personal. It started with the story that I felt like I needed to tell. So, and then you work out logistics, and there's the money aspect. But we had infinite amounts of money for our film.
Oh, you're that guy.
You should have seen our suite hotel. I mean, I'm pretty sure there was blood stains on my carpet in our room. It was not, maybe, I don't know.
Well, for us, I just said to Lisa, hey, we have this idea, go for it, just do you. And she always, you always hovered around 15, I think. And I don't think it was ever we have to do 15, we have to do 10. It was more, and we didn't even have a budget. We didn't say, oh, this is how much we can spend. It's let's write the story, see what happens. And so we started with, just the best story. And then after that, reality kicked in, and it was okay, we have this much money. How can we shave it? But I think if you really honestly start with the story, you can compromise with money. You can raise a little bit more. It's not that much more, you know what I mean? So I feel we always prioritized.
A little bit more on story, the idea of when did you know this was the script to shoot? Because sometimes you can be in rewrite, and that is a necessary process. But there's a point where you're okay, this is what we're shooting this, or this is the thing where we're locked down, and this is we have a shoot date. Sometimes people lead with that. What was kind of the process in going? Okay, this is what we're shooting.
I gave myself a shoot date. I mean, I would rewrite 40 times if I could. I'm just a crazy perfectionist that way. But yeah, and I took, I had an incredible DP, Arlene Muller, and if you have a chance to work with her, she's brilliant. And she gave me 2 days of full note sessions, and we blocked all the shots, and just because I was running back and forth, obviously in front of camera and behind camera, but. Suddenly, my brain just blanked. What were we talking about? I'm talking about Marlene.
You had a shoot. You had a shoot date.
Yes.
That
I
was your
basically
end
had
goal.
to set myself a date, of like, I am shooting on this day, come hell or high water, deposit goes down. When I actually signed the contract and the deposit, and I was like calling them being like, okay, but if somebody falls out here, and like, no, you just have to commit to it. And, you know, if you know the story you want to tell, then you can make it happen. And I was doing tweaks up until we shot, so.
I think the funny thing about this process was this was the first time I had to be open. And what I mean by that is usually whenever I write, no one will see it at all, even if I have 5 drafts, 6 drafts. So I wrote it and sent it out and was like, is this funny? And the response I got from people, and that's like the most vulnerable thing, is to be like, hey, I'm doing a thing. And people seeing your mind, your heart, and the response, getting the response of people being like, yes, this is funny. That's when I knew, okay, like now the next step is to raise the money or make people aware that once you put it on Instagram,
it's real.
When you put it on Instagram, there's no turning back. You know, like, especially if you get, 100 likes, can't delete that post. You got to follow through, so. Yeah.
Once you tell mom, you got to go.
Yeah. Well, even my mom, like, I don't even think I really told her, kind of. I think I was, like, kind of vague about it. And this is the first time she's seen it. So that's why it's kind of special. I love you, Mom.
Go ahead.
You sure? We actually did it for a competition, and we had a competition in mind. And honestly, I think deep down we knew it would just keep propelling us forward, and it did. And so I think from conception, like the first conversation that Elisa and I had of, hey, let's do something, to like we just married the video and the audio, was I think 3 months or something like that, and that includes like crowdfunding and everything. So I think that really helped us, just having like this is the deadline, you can't pass it by a minute. So that helped.
I'm not sure what the right answer to that is. I know I had a handful of scripts that I had written myself, and this one, I think like the first draft of this script I wrote in film school, like, a long time ago. And I mean, again, this was sort of a personal decision too, but yeah, you just have to say, okay, I'm going to do it. I have this window of opportunity for me. I think I'd finished a job, and I had something else after, and it was like a very busy time, but I was going to squeeze it in. I was going to do this thing. And actually, I had the surgery. I had a hernia. It's kind of embarrassing. Like 2 days before production, and it was really weird. My doctor said it was fine for me. He's like, yeah, it's no big. It's so it's not a big deal. You could fly to LA, because I don't live in LA. I live in Utah. You can fly to LA like right after the surgery if you want. But my girlfriend was Katie. She was with me at the surgery, and he came in and he's like, "Oh no, I don't think that's right. Actually, you should probably stay home a couple days before you go." So I couldn't lift 10 pounds. I couldn't, literally couldn't lift 10 pounds. So I had to have my parents come and help me. Actually, my parents did the art direction in the film, and I know. So, but yeah, it was like, okay, I made the decision, and I just have to do it. I already said yes, and I only have this window of time, so I'm going to do it, even limping, and on. I don't think I'd do that again, though. Like with the painkillers and stuff like that was a little bit foggy at times, but having my mom help me, like, Mom, can you get my computer? I can't lift it. It's too heavy. But,
So lesson being, get your mom to help you on set.
Yeah.
Your mom, not you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. My mom was good. I think she'd be a good art director. So hit her up.
I would say, I think that, I think part of it is like, yes, rewriting and all that kind of stuff. But I think the other part is I actually really believe that a lot of people are fearful to actually make something, like, and understandably so. You're spending money, you're putting yourself out there. If something goes wrong, you've asked people to be involved, but it is something you ultimately have to do. And to speak to your point, like, I think that, like, well, one, even if it's something you're doing small yourself, nobody has to work with anybody they don't want to work to. So even if you're doing something really small, you should start building the team that you really do want to work with, and like you can go out. Everybody's very accessible in Los Angeles. It's a very small town. And I've worked with Arlene and she is great. And, but what I would say is, like, in the moment you start having like these pieces fall into place, and whether it's your DP or your production designer or your lead actors or whoever it is on your team, you're going to find very quickly, as people have, that you are going to have one window no matter what where that can happen, or the team's never going to come together all again, and that's when you make it.
That transitions us in a little bit in the production. Obviously, we have a room full of actors, so always want to know your casting process. How did you find your actors? Who did you know? Who did you find and discover? Kind of talk about your process of finding your actors, and who do you decide to work with?
I used a casting director that I've used many times to cast commercials, and I found a great cast. I begged her for a deal. I did see everybody, in an audition, except for Kat. She came in last because somebody dropped out when they found out what the name of the film was, and it was like a day, 2 days before or something, and it was a real bummer. Actually, I had a conversation, and her agent yelled at me because she asked me to change the name of the film.
Say the agent's name.
Yeah, I can't even remember the name. I can't remember. She was like, you really pulled a fast one on us, because I think the first draft was something else. And I was like, it was something weird anyway. But it was, it's like I knew as soon as they came in. As soon as they came in the room, I knew. I was like, okay, yeah, this is the person. There was no, I wasn't like, is it this one or this one? Is this? It's like I knew instantly.
Shout out the casting director. Who was it then?
So Rosanna Crash Casting. Rosanna Crash Casting. Yeah.
I cast Tyler. He was in an acting class of mine for, I guess, for a couple of years we were in together. Jeffrey Marcus, if you know him, he's great. And I just thought when I sort of tweaked the character, I had a few people in mind, and I'm like, no, I think he would bring this great balance of you like him, but he's swarmy, but they have a bond, and and he worked out really well. I was so pleased with how it came out. And then America Young, who I think you know as well, and she was my stunt coordinator as well as my fight opponent. And then Mig Macario, who was also in class, who's an amazing actor and did me a favor to play the referee. That was it, basically myself. And hopefully in future projects, I will be able to hire wonderful casting directors.
We put out a breakdown, but we were looking for such specific people because we were looking for Korean Americans who are bilingual, and also Japanese American who are also bilingual. I believe the Asian American film community is very tight, and so I basically reached out and said, "Hey, do you know anybody?" And we pulled who we know together and auditioned everybody. I think there was one offer. The grandmother was an offer because I'd worked with her before, and everybody. And Esther, the oldest Ajumma. But other than those two, I think were auditions, I believe.
On this particular run, we did have a casting director, and she was incredible. Her name is Jessica Sherman, and obviously we had a very tall order. It was a large cast. Kids are always a challenge to cast, just because there's such a wild card to it. We were lucky that both of our kids were actively working kids, so they had a lot of set experience. But she was incredible, and I can't say enough about all the actors in this. I think the short lives and dies by Jonathan Tucker, but I think that the whole ensemble is just extraordinary.
The main kid, AJ, came from Paradigm Agency, and the rest of the kids came from LA Casting, I believe. The teacher, Kalina, she came from LA Casting. And the funny thing is, my decision to cast them, they're based off of people I've encountered, people I know or have known. Also, Jim, the janitor, came maybe a few days before production. We were shooting. A friend of mine, she develops photos at a photo lab somewhere in LA, and we hadn't casted our janitor. We were searching high and low. She took an Instagram picture of this man, his headshot. He goes and gets his headshot developed and has a copy there. He was perfect. His name's Julio. Julio, are you here by chance? No, Julio's not, but my mom's here though. And so Julio is like this sweet Cuban man, and he had this big bushy mustache, and he's like some kind of Latin singer, and we had to really convince him to shave his mustache, and he was like, I can't, because he's in a band. So a few days before production, we randomly found this guy's headshot and casted him, and he was a pleasure, and he was awesome.
Can you give us a little context behind the scenes? Because we've seen the final product, but we know there's a lot that goes behind the scenes. Is there a shot? They're like, you saw it this way, but the dog had to stop barking for 15 minutes and it stopped raining for 3 seconds to make happen. Just give us a little behind the scenes of like, if you knew the story, how to make the shot happen, this is what you need to know. Is there any of those type of things to give us a little context into the filmmaking aspect of being on set and in the moment details that have to happen?
Babies. Oh. I mean, the chubby one was my cousin. So there's a couple of babies. I would have had probably a few more, I think, if I could. Yeah, I think there is one shot that's just a wig, It's like he's holding a like styrofoam head with a wig that we found like at the yeah, that I've shot with kids before. I've shot actually a lot of commercials with kids, and it's a challenge. It can be a challenge, but this was probably the hardest thing. And like the painkillers and stuff like that. It was that was a real challenge. Shoot. The location though was really great because it was like already dressed basically. It was almost Christmas time, I guess. Yeah. So there were like holiday. There was like a lot of holiday stuff at this thrift store, which my mom and dad took everything down. So yeah, I guess like as shot by shot, I think I worked with Sean Bagley, our DP, on many jobs, so we kind of have this language, I think, and we made a lot of decisions before. Probably, I think as far as our workflow goes, communicating, it's almost like unspoken. Really, it really is. Like sometimes I will say like, "Hey, Sean, could you just like that?" And he's like, "On it," Really, I mean, it's like it's kind of weird in that way, but I definitely learned a lot of lessons making this movie, and it was just about babies. I think like if I could have just, I bet we lost like 2 or 3 hours, just because of the crying, and you can only give them like so much candy.
Or painkillers.
Yeah, or painkillers.
Right, or painkillers. Yeah. That was an act. Yeah.
I'm trying to think what's going to be the most interesting to you guys being actors. I mean, we loaded into that space, and it was in South Los Angeles at 5 a.m. So I was in like my workout gear helping to load in because we had to dress that set that morning, and then I had to go into makeup, and I'm watching my crew like in the makeup chair, and they're like putting all this like fight makeup on me because we actually started with the establishing shot of me waking up, so I could actually have time in that morning to see the frame and see like what world we were dressing. But probably the funniest moment was having to come out in my boxers and pasties and be like, "Hi guys, these are my boobs. I'm going to be shooting like this. I'm your director too, so let's just have fun, you know, like, and just demystify all that. And obviously my character was, you know, could be a little crazy. And so it was just sort of like we're actors, we all wear so many hats, and we're able to because that's how we're trained. And so it was just sort of like wearing the production hat, wearing the director hat, wearing the actor hat, and you just go for it.
I think the two that come to mind are probably, the first one is all the costuming that we had with all the flashbacks, the extensive conversations we had with the Kurosawa eyebrow and like the hanboks and all that. And we were lucky because we had friends that owned the hanbok, so they were in like child sizes that we had to like fit into adult women, so that was a little tough. I think the other one is probably, because it's so stylized, the transitions they have to be shot a certain way so they work. So either they're like punch-ins or punch-outs or measured a certain way. And so there were a lot of takes where the actor had to, I hate to direct like this because it's so mechanical, but it's like, can you just do this? Just do this, like 4 times. And it would just be like 5 minutes of just like doing this, you know? So that's probably like, but it's necessary, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
It's like every commercial shoot.
Yeah.
I feel like every element of that short I mean, it really required like flexing every producer muscle. I mean, like I said, there were the kids, there was animals, there were drones, there was special effects makeup, which included the tattoos, there were weapons, and like all of that. There were many locations, but I think that like, I mean, so there was just, yeah, every element kind of was like, I mean, it had its own thing. I think probably, yeah, the thing that is the most interesting is, yeah, like the fully tattooing black and the amount of time that took and all those elements. And like, and there was also the tattoo sequence, but that's an interesting story. The tattoo during the montage was actually like pigskin, and then, you know, we shot it with like a phantom camera, like on pig. Obviously we weren't really tattooing a person, but like, so that was like how we mimicked that reality.
Our shoot was strangely really easy, and it was kind of it was like very frightening actually. We shot 2 days, a Saturday, Sunday. Saturday, I remember going home. Sean can tell you we shot like flawlessly, no hitches, and I was at home and I was like, we're missing something. You know, you just have this like existential crisis, like, oh, we're missing, no one died, like what? I think the toughest thing that we encountered was Sunday was our final day. When you see Jim rowing, originally he was supposed to be standing in the bucket and he was going to propel himself. That did not work at all. So we, our second AC, we built this rig, the cart that you see. And our second ace second AD, excuse me, demonstrated it and it tipped over, and he like hurt himself, but he was fine. But he's fine. He's fine. He's alive. But we figured it out. We figured how to make it work, and we just had somebody pulling the cart rather than, you know, risk any other lives.
We're about to wrap up, and I love being off of being away from the experience for a while to be able to look back and go, what would you have told yourself in the beginning of this process? Like, be aware of this, or keep in mind of this, and just thinking of some of these people who, as they begin to create their own projects, to hear from someone who's kind of been there and go, keep this in mind, or remember this, or you know, whatever, again, advice you would have for someone who's starting the process you went through.
I would just say that you truly never know the trajectory that a short or a feature, but a short specifically, is going to take. And I don't know how many people know the story of ours, but like, we shot it. It was self-financed by the director and his wife, who was also a producer on the project. And, you know, we started submitting it when we were done, and we did not get in anywhere. We did not get into Sundance. We did not get into South by. We did not get into Tribeca. We did not get into Palm Springs. I was an alumni of every festival I just listed. We got into Holly Shorts, who have been amazing over the years. We won Holly Shorts. We became an Oscar qualifier. We got nominated, then we won the Oscar. Which is just like the craziest experience. But like, there was a time where I was like, this is not going to find life, and that's that. And then it totally, just the wildest thing happened. So, don't ever give up, like with getting your short out there.
This might seem obvious, but like, be open to collaboration. That's like super important. Again, for me, in creating this, I learned how to be more communicative with my departments and being vulnerable, sharing yourself, because that's how you get the best product. And the people who support you will make sure that, that you're going to get something really good. They're going to be very honest with you. It may be hard, may be difficult, but be open to that.
I think we did this. Put story first above anything. We weren't thinking about festivals. We weren't thinking about who's gonna watch it, except I wanted my mom to watch it and love it, and she does. And my dad, who's Caucasian. So, but yeah. So I would just say always put story first. And then everything else should follow, whether it's the money, where's it gonna go, like, is it gonna get distribution, all this stuff. Yeah.
I'd say first and foremost, trust yourself. There were there was a few instances on set where I look back and I'm like, oh, I should have gone with my instinct there. Like, I listened to other people who had technically more experience than me, because I was a first-time director. And it was a good balance, and it's important to do that, but I'm like, oh no, that would have been good. And so trust yourself because you're an actor. You're a storyteller. If you're looking to write or direct or produce, like, your time on set, your time in the acting community really has created an authentic storyteller within you. So trust in that.
This is a hard one. I was just like, gosh, can we skip me? Yeah, I mean, it's like, the list is really long. There's some like really, pragmatic things. Like, it would be nice if we would have shot one extra day. You don't always have that convenience, or even really, we didn't know that we needed that, until later. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely some bravery in storytelling, and I think that everybody was brave on both the cast and crew, but I guess that's one thing that I've learned as a filmmaker is we just have to do it for the sake of telling a story, because. Sometimes it's really fantastic, and sometimes it's not. And but I think that if you kind of put yourself into it as much as you can, then it's worth it. Even if it is terrible. I mean, I've made a lot of terrible things. I mean, really pretty embarrassingly terrible things. I love to show young directors that too, who only see, they only see like the things that I might be recognized for, and they think, oh, here's this guy who has a successful career, and I was like, well, hold on, I have this link already prepared. Here are 10 things, and I really have shared a link like that, and get an email. They're like, wow, man, wow. But I think that if you're brave and you're like, okay, this project might end up in that folder. Yeah. It might. I mean, I hope that it doesn't. But it might, but just do it anyway, because it's like something that's personal to you, and you have to be a storyteller, so you just have to do it, and don't be afraid, and don't be afraid to lose all your money, or it's like eventually it'll pay off. I mean,
I think that's a great place to end. Thank you. Thank you. everyone here for making your project and come sharing about it. We appreciate you. We appreciate you for coming. Again, like I mentioned before, there's some food. Hang out, introduce yourself, and we'll see you next time. Thank you again.